In this video, we'll go over a couple of miscellaneous things that you can do in Figma that I do very, very often. So I just wanted to kind of create assignments around those things so that you know about them if they're useful to you and your workflow. One of the things is scaling elements. So it kind of keeps everything in proportion. It also scales things like shadow sizes, stroke sizes, font sizes, so like everything is really gonna scale. That also means that a lot of the things contained within the element that you're scaling are gonna resize to half pixels, so just keep that in mind. That's not always the ideal case that we're using for UI design. But if for some reason you really want to just kind of see how things would scale to a particular size with keeping everything in proportion, use the scale tool. So to do that, you need to hit K. It's going to allow you to enter a particular size, so you can make it like 3 times the size, or you can just figure out the width and or the height as the element that you want to kind of reference. So for example, if you want to make this 300, you can see that it scaled it based on it. You can also see that the stroke size is now 1.88 and the shadow is some weird values as well. So keep it in mind. It's really useful for a couple of things, but if that happens, you just also keep in mind that some other things are scaling, which maybe you want scaled, maybe not. The other thing, and it's a feature that I think was introduced after we recorded the main part of this course, and that's creating sections. So you can just kind of hit a frame like this, and you can turn it into a section really easily. So let's call it your workspace. And sections are neat because honestly, as you're presenting work and sending it to clients or teammates, you often want to kind of group your flows into logical sections. In some smaller projects, just like using enough spacing is going to be fine for you to figure out which screens are connected, which are maybe less connected, and which are completely not connected because they're completely different features in the same app or website. And in other bigger projects, you don't have like so much spacing that you can kind of do all of those things. So we often would create frames that contained all of our screens inside of it. And it was great because it allowed you to group things, but it was not great because once you had to edit things or like move them around, it was a little bit tougher because you had a frame inside a frame inside a frame, and you know how tough it can be to navigate to a particular frame that way. So Figma found a solution for it by creating something that kind of works like a frame, but doesn't contain elements the same way that the frame would. So if you have a frame in here, I can still easily go inside and click on the frame, and that's going to be the main part of it. While if this was a frame and not a section, you can see that now it's a little bit harder because the frame naming and everything is kind of lost. So the way that we would hack it, we would have like name in actual text above that frame. So again, like something that you're actually going to see where sections are going to be useful is when you're organizing the frames and screens that you've designed, and you just kind of want to add a group around it to call it like, oh, this is going to be flow C, and it's going to be about this. Another thing I use daily is copying styles from one place to another. So Command Option C is going to allow me to paste, to copy all of the styles connected to this layer or frame that I'm working with and paste it in here on another item. But if you want to copy just like a particular style, like a fill, you actually need to hit on this layer first. And then there's this small left part next to this fill. So before this stroke appears, if you hit in here, this blue area is going to appear, and you can just copy and paste it here, and it pastes the fill. Again, it's not going to replace it, so that's something that you need to keep in mind. But if you paste it like this with the Command Option and V, then it's going to replace it. And another thing, it also works for effects. So if you have an effect like this, you can paste it in here. Another tip and thing to keep in mind is if some of these are styles, that's not going to be doable. So for example, if I have this as a stroke fill, you can see there's no way for me to get to that blue area. So it needs to be something that's not a style. And then finally, you can use in here something like a gradient fill and an effect, and both of those things are going to paste in here if you do it like that. If you take just one part, it's just going to paste that. And you can also replace it by using Command Option V, so it no longer has that gray fill in here. So yeah, just neat trick and something that I'm using a lot, especially when I'm just like planning out the components and the style of my project. In here, we have this, so you can copy and replace the frame. I'm gonna grab this, copy it, so just Command C, go in here, and I want to place it in the exact same space and just kind of replace it. So Command Option Shift V does that. You can see that there's no longer the right frame anywhere. You could have also just used Command Shift V, but it would place it over the right. You can see that the right is still here, it's just below it. Oh, sorry about it. In here, so it's still in here. If you don't want it to be there, you would have to use the other, so not Command Shift V, but Command Option Shift V, and it replaces it. I use it a lot when I'm working in screen as well, maybe somewhere in here. So like if I have a couple of lines and I want to replace something in the exact spot like this, I want to take this one that's filled and just kind of replace it in here, I would just do that. Finally, one other thing that I often do, I like to keep my Figma organized. I don't bother so much with layers as some other designers do, as you know, but when it makes sense, I do spend time kind of renaming things, especially when I'm prototyping. It's a lot easier to work with that. You saw me do the same thing in here with some of those things. I don't know, in here I think the layer that we needed to navigate to was called this one, while all of the other ones were numbered because I didn't really care about them for the prototype setting. So like in some places where it makes sense, I do like to kind of organize my layers, but one thing I really love to do in Figma is organize my files. And to do that, I'm basically creating thumbnails. So as you know, you got access to a lot of things with our course, and if you went over all of the lessons, you know that there are some things that you need to do to create a thumbnail. One of them is to pick the correct size and everything, but how to turn it into a thumbnail, you can right click and just set as thumbnail. And that means that this file from now on in the list of my files is going to have that frame as a thumbnail. And that's it. Those are a couple of things that I use very often, which I don't really know where to place into with all of the other assignments that are really strictly following the module lessons. So these are just like one-off tips that hopefully you're going to find useful and use a lot as you're designing, because it's going to make you quicker. Once again, thank you so much for following along, and thank you so much for going through this course and learning everything. I hope that these solution videos helped you really understand everything that we are doing as designers, and that now you're feeling a lot more confident in your Figma skills.